Hey everybody, welcome back. I got a wonderful show for us planned today. Listen, most people think creativity looks like having a big plan, the perfect concept, the right equipment, and the right timing. But in real life, creativity often starts with a small idea that just won't leave you alone. And of course, the courage to act on that sometimes before you're even ready. And today's guest, my friend Logan Miller, a creator with a podcast called Now Streaming, where he gets in a kayak with somebody and they just talk about life, different things that they have going on. No studio, no script, no pretending to have it all figured out. And that I love that because listen, we all are looking for everything to be perfect before we get into it. And I think that something there that we've lost, right? Doing things before they're perfect, doing things for meaning besides just metrics, starting before we're confident, choosing the real over the polished. And this episode isn't going to be about building a brand. It's going to be about building yourself, committing to do hard things and letting the conversation flow where it goes. Logan, welcome to the show.
Chris, it's really good to see you. Thanks so much for having me, man.
Every moment tests you. Every action defines you. This is the prestigious initiative where mindset becomes muscle and character becomes legacy. I'm Chris Bean, martial artist, coach, and relentless believer in growth. If you're here to sharpen your edge, lead with integrity, and build a life that echoes beyond your years, you're home. You can find the podcast on social media at PrestigiousSpot. You can find me at Chris Bean Official, and the email for the podcast is prestigiousinitiative@gmail.com. So, Logan, why would somebody want to listen to our conversation here today?
I think if there's somebody out there that I think especially that has an idea they haven't acted on yet, I think this would be a good conversation for them. And if they're looking for just a little inspiration, I know for me, I need to listen to things throughout the week. Sometimes just on a day-to-day basis that kind of light my fire, keep the spark alive. And so if you're somebody that's got a good idea, or if you just need to keep a passion alive, I think this is going to be helpful.
Okay, so bring us in. What was the real moment when Now Streaming stopped becoming an idea that you had and started becoming something that you really had to do?
Yeah, that's a good question. So now streaming, it's an interesting concept. I wanted to start a podcast where I interviewed people, and I had some pretty specific criteria for guests on my show. People that inspire me. I don't want to have conversations with people that don't inspire me in this format, because the format, like you mentioned, is we're in kayaks. I've mounted up cameras and microphones, and I got a drone and all this stuff to kayaks. And so it's not like a brief interaction. When I ask somebody to be on my show, it's like, hey, it's not like, do you want to sit down for an hour? It's like, hey, do you want to hang out with me for like most of a day? And so what I wanted to do is talk to people that inspire me. And that's kind of the first thing. And then the second is they're pointing their life towards other people and whatever they're doing. And I've had some guests that have done that in some pretty different ways. And so I kind of had this concept, but I'm like, I don't know. And for me, I'm a gearhead. I'm a musician as well. And so it's really easy for me to get into the gear purgatory of like, oh, I've got this thing, but I can't quite get there unless I have this. My wife will attest to this all day. And so for me, it really became real. I had the idea, but it was January of 2024. And I had this idea for a while. And honestly, I looked around to see if anybody else was doing it, and nobody was. And I found out why. But it was a thing where I'm a believer. Faith guides my steps. It is the lens how I see the world. And I kept getting just this reoccurring thought, this nudge, if you want to call it that. It was not the thundering voice of God saying, go do the thing. It wasn't like that at all. But it was just a thing where it's like, I kind of had this idea as a joke, like, wouldn't it be funny if I interviewed people in kayaks? But then I'm like, what if I interviewed people in kayaks? And so the moment, to answer your question, was in January 24. And I told my wife, Tiffany, I'm like, I can't shake this idea. And I don't know, but I do kind of feel like it could be the Lord nudging me towards doing some meaningful work. And with great wisdom, she just said, hey, if you feel like the Lord's talking to you, you should probably listen and obey. And I have not looked back since then. So that was it.
Okay, so what strikes me is very interesting right off the bat. It's there. is oftentimes we ask God for things and we're waiting for that big, like you said, the big thunderous voice to come to us and smack us upside the head and move us into whatever direction. But oftentimes it's that still small voice that we have to be open to hear and accepting to hear in order to move down that path that we're being nudged to as opposed to smacked around to.
Yeah. And if I can speak to that a little bit, like for me, one of the reasons I'm drawn to kayaking in the outdoors is because I struggle with stillness. I am a go, go, go kind of guy. I'm generally pretty energetic and enthused about things. Um, but being that and a father of young children and wearing a couple of different hats professionally, that stillness is really, really hard to find for me. So I think one of the reasons I've fallen in love with kayaking is when you're out there, you're fully engaged in what you're doing. You could float around and sit on your phone. I don't do that. I try not to do that. Um, but getting out there and being able to find some stillness. And some days I'll go out and be really committed. Like, I'm not bringing a camera. I'm not creating content. There will be no reel of this trip today. I'm just going to go out and try to be still and hear from the Lord. And so I think that's something that has come with a little perspective, a little age, maybe. But fighting for stillness in a world of amusement is a very good thing for me.
Well, and something that strikes me as interesting too, and I'm sure you've thought about this, but knowing your brother and the outdoor things that he's done, and
Yeah.
now you doing the outdoor things, where do you think that outdoorsy part comes from for you and your brother?
Oh man, that's a good question. So my brother Landon is a master outdoorsman. He was in the military, in the infantry, but he did this thing that was really cool that I think was formative called NOLS, or the National Outdoors Leadership School. And if you're a young person that doesn't know what you want to do, or maybe you're entertaining that gap year kind of idea, you should check out NOLS because I think it'll help you figure out who you are. Um, and and so Landon did all those things, and I'm the younger brother, so I got to kind of watch that happen. But I think where he and I really fell in love with the outdoors was just as boys, as growing up. I have to credit my parents; they were not helicopter parents. Um, my dad and I were just talking about this actually, of how the orbit of access, specifically outdoor access, as a child for me and my son looked really different. My orbit was much wider. We grew up next to some farm fields that had a couple of tree lines that kind of ran through them. I know you've run around with us a little bit out there back in the day, and Landon and I just wanted to be out there. We would go out in the middle of winter and we would camp. We would bring guitars and play at the campfire, or we grew up watching Bear Grylls. You know who Bear Grylls is? Master outdoorsman, former SAS, cool guy. And so we would watch what he would do on an episode, and then we would go out to what we called the spot. We'd go out to the spot. It was about a mile from our house through some fields. And we'd go out there and we would try to make like rafts out of sticks and stuff. And we would strip bark to make cordage and all this nonsense. So I think it really started for us just with the privilege of a childhood that we just had good access to the outdoors. It wasn't the mountains, it wasn't the ocean, but it's what we had, and we really enjoyed it. And I think, again, I, as a beneficiary of being the younger brother, watching Landon do some really cool things in his life in the outdoors, inspired me. And I think sometimes too, especially when there's like an element of danger, we kind of feel like we have to have permission. And we did our fair share of dangerous stuff too. But as the younger brother, it's like, oh, he's doing this, it's going to be fine. It kind of gave me permission as a young person. He did a lot more water based activities before I did. Which is funny because he's scared of water slides, and I love to poke fun at him like that. But then he'll go whitewater canoeing out of the Wind River Range, So anyway, but anyway, to answer your question, I think it came from childhood with good access, and being able to just be out there and do the thing, and then also having a good example like him.
Now, with your show, I got to ask why kayaks, and what is that environmental change due to the conversation? Because like right now I'm in my, I say quote unquote studio. I'm in my garage. this is one type of conversation. We're in an enclosed environment. But when you're out in the open, you're out in the wilderness, you're out on the lake having that conversation. What does that do to the conversation?
I think it does to conversation what food can often do to a conversation.
Mhm.
I think it breaks a barrier. I think you tend to have a more intimate experience in conversation when there's something to break the barrier. If it's not just, you and I having this conversation in an interrogation room would feel one way. This feels different. We're both at home, we're comfortable, we're in our own space. But what I have found and what I love about doing something like now streaming outside is it's a barrier breaker. I have done episodes with people that I know extremely well, like our friend Josh Penley, who is an international teacher, pointing his life towards serving students of different nationalities and growing his own perspective with he and his wife Dana at the same time. And it's just an interesting thing when you get out there, maybe where somebody you don't know as well. It really does break down a barrier. And for me, at least, some of my more pivotal conversations or some of my more barrier breaking conversations with people over the years haven't happened in formal environments. They haven't happened in offices. They haven't happened in environments where, we're kind of in our norm. I think sometimes it's best had, for me personally, outside, doing something shoulder to shoulder. And I know you and I have done some of that over the years, and that is a better way to get to know people, in my opinion, especially if you love the outdoors. The other cool thing about doing it in that way is I've often found as well that I'm bringing people out to the river where this isn't their norm. They're not used to going out and jumping in a kayak and paddling and, do they go this way? Do they go that way? So if I want to go this way, I paddle on this side, or, whatever it is. I think there's just something good to be said about breaking out of the norm, touching grass or water in this case, getting away from screens and being in an uncontrolled environment. I think the outdoors just breed opportunities for authenticity. And all of that excites me.
Well, I think the other thing is there's a sense of brotherhood or even sisterhood where when you're doing an activity outside like that, that is different than if you're sitting down. I mean, having a meeting over coffee is one thing, and a great number of people do that. But when you're out doing something, working, and again, that brings a sense of brotherhood into that, and that changes the relationship, even if it's with somebody that you've only known for a handful of minutes. When you're working towards something like that, I think that changes the relationship, and then the conversation that can be had because the relationship changed is right there alongside that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So I did an episode with 2016 World Series MVP Ben Zobrist, go Cubs, and got to go out to Nashville to hang out with him out there for a day. And we were paddling on the Harpeth River that kind of goes through Franklin, Tennessee there. And that episode was one of my favorites because so many things went wrong. And he's certainly my most prestigious guest in terms of notoriety. And I remember at one point, like, there were all of these crows just circling above us, and they would not stop squawking. And to the point where it's like, I don't know if we wear mics and everything, but can they hear us? And so he and I, like, he was answering a kind of a big question, and he kind of just looks at me and was like, dude, what do we do? And then at one point we got stuck, and there was a big tree, and we had to get out and lift the kayaks over this big tree. And I always bring my little dog Robin with me. And I'm like, is he going to get swooped up by an eagle? What's going to go on? But all that to say, when stuff goes wrong, it builds chemistry, it builds camaraderie, like you're saying. And I think it's those moments that I really, really hunger for. And I really see the benefit of doing an interview in that setting, just because it just is so different for people's daily norms. And I think you just get to see a different side of people that way.
Well, I think the other thing it does is it creates that bond between you and your guest initially, so you can have that different type of conversation. But that bond, I'm going to suspect, happens or maintains after the fact, moreover than sitting down in a at a coffee shop having a meeting for an hour. Okay, bye, see ya, and then there's no sort of touching base afterwards. But that type of relationship that you're building from the get-go changes that even moving forward.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing because then it's not like a, hey, remember that one time we had that great conversation? Like, that's what a weird thing to say to somebody, you know. Um, but it's like, hey, remember when we were trying to record an interview and I just about drowned? Like, wasn't that exciting? You know. So
Uh,
I think it's a good thing for all those reasons.
Now, as you are recording this, did you have a fear that you had to overcome to actually get this off the ground and launch this?
Yeah, that's a good question. And yes, and not just one. I had a lot of fears, and I think for me the biggest thing was fear of failure. The thing is still
Mm.
fear of failure. I am not a successful podcast host by any stretch of the imagination, other than the fact that I've done it. Um, you know, I think that
Listen,
when
hey,
you're starting something,
I'm gonna tell you, just by doing it makes you more successful than most because on average podcasts get about 7 episodes in and then they quit. And so if you make it
mm,
past seven, like the industry standard, if you're past seven, you're within the top 10 percentile of all podcasts, which there's like a gazillion because nowadays everybody has a podcast. So don't cut yourself short in
yeah,
that. Because you've done it means
yeah,
that you are succeeding at it.
yeah. I appreciate that. And one of the fears, you know, it's like it's easy for me to cut myself at the knees sometimes and be overly critical. And so fighting through that is a moving target for me. But one of the other fears, it was just will anybody care? You know, if I go, because I think I've taken a very thoughtful approach to not just having people that have notoriety or people that are good to look at or whatever, you know. Um, but to have people that, like, to me, exemplify good work and service towards their neighbors. That's really the message I'm trying to spread at the end of the day. And you know, it's like, but will people care? I don't know. And I mean, you know, as you know, when you put in this much effort into something, you want people to partake and to be a part of it and to listen and to share and all those things. And so I think a fear before I really pulled the trigger was like, will anybody care? Um, but I think for me, I had to just let that go at some point because I think fear can be inhibiting towards being creative and to being fully present. So anyway, yeah, there's a lot of fears there. But luckily, with where I'm kayaking, I don't have to fear like alligators and things like that. They're all in my head and typically not environmental hazards.
That would certainly change the environment of the show.
It would. It would. Yeah, that's a bigger ask. Yeah.
Okay, so what have you, okay, so I think the logical next step there from fear is what have you learned about yourself going through this project so far?
Mm. Yeah, I think one of the things I've learned about me, and I think when you do something like this, that is kind of the unexpected byproduct that you get is you do get a lot of good perspective about yourself. And so I think for me, one of those things is that I really, really enjoy listening. And then that may not sound like uh, all that impactful, but I'm a talker. I love to, as you can probably tell, I'm very energetic and I love connecting with people. But one thing I've learned about myself through this is that I really love to sit back and just listen. And that there is something profound when you can be with somebody, especially in my case, where we're out doing something I love and in environments that I love, and I just get to hear and learn from the wisdom of the people that I've had on the show. It has blessed me more than I thought it would. You know, starting this, I was thinking very audience forward. What will catch? What will get metrics? What will get people to listen? You know, all these things. But I think the byproduct has been, wow, this is a real gift to me to be with these people for this amount of time, and just to be able to just to become a better listener. And I think too, as you know, I think being a better listener makes you a better interviewer. Um, so it's been a helpful thing. Yeah.
I think, yes, I'll say yes, and it does make you a better interview. But the cool thing for me is, and I get to learn from
Mm,
all these people. I get to ask them questions. They feel some sort of obligation or pressure to answer these questions, and I get to learn. And so I'm learning, and I get to just bring my listeners along the ride for that journey that since I'm controlling the conversation by leading the questions. I'm at the steering wheel, but they're all passengers on my ship or in my car.
Yeah, it's really good. It's really good.
Now, I have to ask, how does how do you navigate faith in your conversations? Do you already know the people well enough to say where they stand one way or the other? Do you try to avoid that, or do you kind of bake that in?
Yeah, definitely don't try to avoid it. Because for me, my faith is the lens in which I see the world. And so it's hard to not go there. I would say that, yes, I do know the people I'm interviewing for the most part. There's been a couple instances where I wasn't really sure. But here's how I navigate that is, and I appreciated what Caleb Benoit said on your episode with Caleb as well, of kind of working this paradigm of like, yes, I'm a Christian business owner, but in our I don't want to speak for Caleb, but he was a guest on my show as well, and he's an incredible guy. I've known him for a long time. But yes, I'm a Christian, and yes, the business has a mission that is faith based. But there's a lot of in between, right? And so for me, the way I navigate that is in the questions I ask and trying to kind of elicit what is really behind the person. And then one thing I do at the end of every episode is I do the lightning round, which has never been fast. I had these dreams of the lightning round being like a really quick, like cut back and forth between my camera, their camera, my camera, their camera. And instead it's been like, I ask a question and then deep thought. and so it's actually turned into like one of the more poignant moments in the show. And we've got really deep questions like, who was your first celebrity crush? That's really deep and powerful, of course. Or who's your, if you had a lightsaber, what color would it be? That's a part of the lightning round. But I end with the same two questions every time, and this is always the most telling for me. And I had a friend of mine say, hey, you should really think about doing those on the front end so everybody gets them, because as you know, not everybody's always listening to the end. So that's something I'm thinking about. But the last two questions is, second to last, where do you find hope? And that is always a moment where I get to see a little of who's behind the curtain. What gives you hope? Where do you find hope? Because you have a lot of options, right? The world has offered us no few options, and so I've had the spectrum, and I've had answers I expected and answers I haven't expected. And then the last question is, how do you find rest? Rest is hard to come by for a lot of us. We're grinded. The culture in our country is perform, and rest is hard to come by. So in those two questions, I typically see the realist part of who I'm talking to. And to tie that into the faith question is that's usually where it comes out. Because for me, if you're asking me, Logan, what gives you hope? Jesus Christ, period. Right. And so for me, that's where I place my hope. That's where I stand. That's the hill I'll die on. And not everybody feels that way. And some people have, they might find their hope in their kids or hope in whatever, construct they view through. But yeah, I think for me, I do definitely enjoy speaking to people that have the same faith system as I do. But over time, it's been really enlightening to talk to people that don't view the things the same as me as well. I think that's been a healthy thing.
It is interesting sometimes talking with somebody that doesn't have the exact same worldview of, as you do, or whatever that area is that you're talking about, because it gives you an opportunity to, let's say, learn something from the other side. And it's not like it's going to persuade you or change your view on that, but at least it gives you an idea of, oh, I see now why you believe that, or I see why you act like X. And all of that is based on some sort of belief system that they have, whether that's about God or about whatever other thing that you're talking about. But the way that they believe things, where I would say is where their values are, aligns them with who they are and how they interact with people. And so by asking a question like that, it gives you insight. And then what that does is, at the very least, it helps you to understand that person at a different level, I would say a deeper level.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And yeah, it's nice to, be out and be paddling with somebody all day and kind of land there. For me, that's been a very just perspective giving. Is, I ask all these questions about somebody's career, their trajectory, their mission, their vision, their values, what have you. And then at the end of the day, it's like, hey, okay, all that aside, what's fueling you? What's keeping your head afloat and looking forward towards the horizon. So yeah, it's a good thing.
Yeah, and what a way to have a deep and meaningful conversation with that person as well. And for the listeners that want to jump in and learn more about that person, or maybe even learn more about themselves along that journey, it would be insightful as well.
Yeah, I hope so. That's definitely the goal.
Now, Logan, how do you handle the pressure to make something good versus making something honest?
Mm-hmm. Adam Mosseri, the CEO of Instagram. Are you familiar with Adam?
No.
He's a good follow. On New Year's Eve, we're in 2026, so it's New Year's Eve 2025. He put out a 20-slide post that I found really interesting and encouraging and challenging. And he was talking about how things are going to change this year because of AI. Of course, AI is the thing we're all talking about. It's it's going to take everybody's jobs. It's going to destroy the world. There have been some troubling interviews of people in that space, talking about the implications for the next year and a half, and that'll all be interesting to see. But when it comes to people like you and I that are trying to create content and share perspective and good things out in the world, AI does have some implications for us, I think. And as I think about that, it's how can I make something that's uniquely me and something that, like you said, truly authentic. And here's, I think, where I land. Adam was talking about how, AI, it's already better than some of us, and it's going to get a lot better than us at making something that looks good. I think it's getting really good at creating something that looks professional and polished. But what I think in Adam's posts, for anybody who wants to look at it, he's kind of leaning into like the authentic, the true creator, that angle is what's ultimately going to win. And so for me, I struggle with perfectionism. I want to nitpick everything until it's absolutely perfect. And I knew that about myself before I created this show. And I think one of the things that's really hard to do is to make something to the standard I want to make it when I can't control almost any of it. When I'm out there recording, I have no control of the lighting. It's not controlled in any. God is the orchestrator of that environment. And so for me, I have to be focused on the experience, on the authentic, on the story that I'm trying to tell of my guest. And so for me, those two things are really shaping how I view being creative right now. Is AI's here, and it's going to get easier for people with less experience and less skills to make good things. But I don't think it's going to be easier for them to make something that's authentic and that has true human connection and true and compelling story. And so I think at the end of the day, we have to lean to the authentic and let good go.
Well, I think the other byproduct there is, because AI is making things accessible and easy to do, what that does, in my estimation, is it lowers the amount of work that it requires to do whatever that thing is. And because the amount of work is so low, it's not going to be felt the same, because I'm not putting my time, energy, and effort into this thing, this project, this passion project for me. It's this AI is doing it all the work, and I'm collecting the dollars, or whatever the followers or whatever that thing is. But because there's not amount of work that goes into it on the front end, it's not going to be long lived. Like it's going to peak and then it's going to fall out. And I think what we'll see is what we have been seeing is a lot of that, like a quick rise and then a sharp drop, and a quick rise and a sharp drop. But if you have a human element in it, or a human as the only element, then what you see is the slow rise, and eventually like it's nothing, 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 and then there's a little bit of and then nothing, and then it goes up and then it stays up for a fair bit of time, unless that person steps away. But because that difference happens when there's a person there, they know the time, energy, and effort that went into it. And if they're willing to put in the reps with nobody on the other side, then they're going to be willing to put in the reps when there are people on the other side. But when you focus on AI and you think, oh, okay, I'm just going to do this thing and it's going to grow and oh, it's going to be great, and then it grows and it's huge, but it's not huge in comparison to what they thought it was going to be. It didn't like blow up. Wow, okay, I'm done with this. It didn't do what I wanted to do. And I think that is the difference for me.
Yeah, I agree. And, and I'm not to say that I'm not going to use it at all or anything like that, I think would probably be disingenuous. I think there's something to be said for creators in reducing friction to achieve sustainability. And so there are some ways that I hope, like with what I do, it involves like, I'm a one-man show. Like I'm mounting these things to kayaks, and then I'm getting them all out, and you've got the SD cards and batteries, and did that get wet? Probably. And then it's like, okay, I got to get all this to a computer, and make it sound good and look good. And so the ways where I get a little bit excited on the AI front is more like, hey, how can I do this in a maybe more efficient way so I can put more energy into the storytelling and put more energy into the experience, and maybe honestly have a little less stress in the creation process. But it's for me, it like generative AI is just not something that's interesting to me as a creative. I think it's a cheap, and I think people will see through it. I think it is a cheap option that at the end of the day, people are going to come back, like you're saying, to somebody that's real and has put in real energy and real effort into something. And at least for me, I hope it's, we're early in this AI thing, but I hope that is the lens I continue to see things through. And I hope that's the quality gate that I consume through over time. We'll see.
Well, okay. So that brings up an interesting point here. Can you share a little bit about the amount of work that goes into each of your shows? So like you are picking a guest. Let's say you picked a guest. What are the next steps that you do in order for that episode to happen, to sit in the kayak and then to have that launch out to the people?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I hone in on a who, and then comes the ask, which I alluded to this earlier, but it's not like hey, do you want to sit down for 45 minutes to an hour? It's like, hey, do you want to come hang out with me all day and do something hard and literally exercise to some degree, and then like, do you want to deal with all that? And so if I get a yes, then great. Then I don't do a lot of pre-interview. I try to keep it pretty organic, just because I have the benefit of being out there for usually multiple hours. So the conversation I start with and what I end with are pretty different in terms of time. So kind of work through that with them, make sure that they're comfortable with what's going on. But then there's a lot to do. I'm managing a lot of gear, microphones. I've gone through some gear iterations already. I'm sure it'll continue to happen, but I started with GoPro. I've landed on Insta360. So I've kind of changed my format. So I've blended those action cameras, which really are more like mini cameras than action cameras. When we think action camera, we think something that's going to be like a POV of somebody skiing down a mountain. Like they're actually pretty sophisticated cameras for what they are. And so it's getting all those things ready and then getting the kayaks off the racks and then onto the truck and then to the location. And then, once we get there, it's like, I'm with the person, but it's like, I didn't bring these out here beforehand to sit by the river by themselves with the gear. So like, we're actually kind of side by side, mounting up everything, testing it, getting them in the water. And like, usually that's the more dangerous part of the show is people getting in and out of the kayaks. That's typically when people fall. And so making sure that I'm managing safety to the best of my ability. We always wear PFDs in almost every case, personal flotation devices, life jackets, whatever you want to call them. And so there's a lot of, all that to say, there's a lot of minutia. And then that comes into recording intro voiceover, outro voiceover, getting out in a kayak by myself and recording the little ad breaks in between. I don't have any sponsorships. I'm still, all this to say, I'm still really early in this process of this creative journey with now streaming specifically. So no brand sponsorships or anything like that as of today. But doing little things that just point people towards subscribing and thinking about all those things, thinking about SEO, thinking about alt text, thinking about, really high quality descriptions. And then you go do the whole experience and you try to provide something that's meaningful and fun for the guest. And then it's okay if we're driving cars around. I know this is still probably so boring to listen to, but we get to the end of the thing and then we got to leave boats here, get one car, go get the other car, come back, get boats, and then we all go our separate ways. And then I got to go home. I got to put all this stuff up and get all the cards and the media, get it loaded on the computer, get organized, and then start to edit. So there's a few things going on. And then, of course, like the episode, I really enjoy long form. That's my favorite way to consume. I think that's really when you get to know people, which is why I love what you're doing is you can hear some sound bites of somebody over a reel or something like that, but you really get a sense of a person over, if you break that 30-minute mark and there's consistent conversation, I think you're more likely to have a closer look of who that person really is. And so I really love the long form, but we have to have short form too. You do this really well of getting short form clips on socials that are thematic and right into it. But that takes time, going back through, it's like, oh, okay, I shot this in horizontal, but now I have to make it vertical, which is still so stupid. I'm sorry. I just can't stand vertical media. It makes sense because our rectangles are all vertical, but it's just a challenge, and then thinking about what the caption is, what the thumbnail is, when to post, how to post, where to post. It just never ends. So when you think of it like that, and I know that was exhaustive and probably uninteresting, but when you're thinking about creating something that means something to you front to back, that's where in the conversation of reducing friction, I get interested. It's because I love the product. I love being able to do what I do and to be able to provide this experience of, and the other thing too about what I do is like, when I'm taking somebody out to go do a thing, like this isn't, like I said earlier, this isn't their norm. So I hope I'm gifting them an experience too, where they get to kind of unplug and have a moment. So reducing that friction, whether it be through AI or hiring an editor or whatever your means allow you, I do have hope that will help us create good things. So I don't know if that answers your question. But
yeah, absolutely. And I found that really insightful. I really like the system of things. And I am ever trying to refine my system by trying different things and see what works and what doesn't work. If anybody's been watching my show for long enough, you could go back and look at the different videos and see, oh, that one, I kind of like this one. Oh, what was he doing here? I try different things, and sometimes stuff works and sometimes stuff doesn't work. And I don't know until I try it. And that's just on the side that the people see. On the other side, I've done a whole plethora of different things in order to make this experience easiest for me to do. And okay, so with that in mind, I want to ask you, when you're in the kayak, do you have like note cards with the questions that you want to ask? Are you asking them on the fly? How does that work?
I struggled with this exact thing for a little while because I never want to do anything that takes away from the guest experience, and I never want to do anything that makes me feel like I've broken the fourth wall, or if I'm taken out of that experience while it's happening for the guest and while it's happening for the viewer. My mind is already in 1,000 different directions the whole time. There's no escaping it. But to protect the guest and the viewer is important. And so originally I'm like, no, I'm going to memorize everything. But then I remembered I have ADHD and I'm like, okay, maybe not the best thing to rely on my own memory. So honestly, here's where I've landed. Out of respect for wanting to tell the story properly for the guest and to hit all the things that I know will be able to paint the picture well, I actually do bring my phone, and you can see it in the episodes. I don't love it, but it's out there. So I've got my notes app up for a lot of it, and I do reference it, especially when we get to the lightning round, because I try to do it the same every time. But I do reference it just because attention is so already scattered. And then you get outside and it's like, oh, there was a river otter. I don't see those very often. Or I hope that fisherman doesn't catch my guest, which has happened. Or excuse me. Or, whatever the environmental challenge is, I really find it important to be able to still guide good questions over time in a way that respects the guest story. So while it's not the highest production value, it's not like we're not hiding cameras or anything like that. Like it is kind of just is what it is, and it's out there. Maybe I'll find a way over time to do it in a less obvious way, but right now that's how it goes.
You got to get one of the football arm sleeves that has the questions on it.
Dude, I have thought about it. I've actually thought about it. I'm like, I could drill that into the kayak.
Yeah.
And I'm like, then you'd be able to see that too.
You could reposition the camera so it would be out of view. That'd be easy.
Yeah. Yeah. I need you to come out and help me brainstorm.
Yeah. So the systems for those type of things I think it comes from the martial arts background and the amount of rope that I've had accessible there to hang myself with sometimes, but sometimes just to test it and see what works. So like right now, you can't tell. I'm in my garage. This is my garage desk. I have a big, I have a 42-inch TV here that acts as my monitor that is just black right now because I have it set to black. In front of me, I have a 3D printed teleprompter that I designed and printed that has just I don't even have like teleprompter glass. It's just a piece of glass. And then on the other end of that is my iPhone, which is taking the video for this. And then I have like it's like a laptop tray that my iPad is on that has my slides on it. And then underneath my desk, I have foot pedals. It's like a 3-foot pedal thing that advances the slide or rewinds the slide. And then right underneath that, I have a timer that I have set to buttons that are underneath my desk here that start the timer and then stop the timer, just so I have an idea of how long we're recording with. But like for me, those type of system type of things are fun for me. But on the other side, it also makes it lowers the amount of, let's say, quote unquote, work that I have to do when I sit down to record. I come out here, I plug my phone in, I plug my iPad in, I sit down, and I'm good to go. And then I'm done. My audio recorder is here underneath my desk. I take the SD card out, I put it into the the USB drive, and boop, I do the audio. Okay, great, it's done. And I have a buddy of mine, Chris Kent, who actually was co-host of the show for a long time. He actually does the syncing of the audio and video, and then he sends it back to me, and I schedule it to go out. And the clips that you referenced, listen, I would love to take credit for all of those. And I do go through the process of making them. But on Substack, where we host the audio at, the video goes up there. It kind of segments out, hey, this is a good minute clip. This is a good minute clip. And what I do is I take those clips, I put it in a vertical format with the artwork and stuff on the back end, and then schedule those out. But it's really difficult to try to figure out, man, where I know what I liked for the episode, but what I like for the episode is probably not what most people like for the episode, because I'm different, and I'll admit I'm way different than most people. I have to imagine. I'm also not on social media very often, so I don't know what people watch on social media. So that I find helps a whole bunch, because all I have to do is take those clips, boop, I put them vertical, I add the captions, okay, send it over. So each clip might take 15 minutes or so to do. So if I post a clip every day, that's like 15 extra minutes worth of work. It is work, yes, and I have to schedule it or post it up on each of the different platforms. That's the most time consuming part. But anyways, all I'd say is the back end stuff I really find interesting, because that to me is how you have handled those systems for yourself to reduce that friction enough in order to sustain and continue doing it.
Yeah, for sure. And that is, for me, it's like trying to keep a growth mindset and trying to know that I'm not the expert. And ultimately I think at best, I want to be a lifelong learner. And when it comes to production, of course, so in college, I studied production, photography, videography. I've worked in that space professionally for a long time. And so this is kind of just my own iteration of that for my own mission. But those systems, those processes, they really do make or break you, because at the end of the day, it's like, do you want to go out and do this thing and tell these stories, or do you not want to go through all that work?
Mm.
And it's like, for me, it's like, I'm okay with hard things. I want to do that. But how can I make it as frictionless as possible? So I'm respecting my guest time, and, like as a young dad with young kids, like their childhood is of the utmost importance to me. And so how do I go do the thing and chase my dreams and do all that and keep that in front of me, but also be a very, very present dad who's growing and launching kids. So yeah, all those things. I can nerd out about this kind of stuff too, just because we do spend so much of our lives on it and nobody sees it.
Yes.
It's the part that nobody sees, all the blood, sweat, and cables. Yeah, there's a lot there.
Yeah.
That could be a great podcast name, actually. Blood, sweat, and cables. There's something there.
Hey, that's cool. I also, and I'm going to suspect you're along this side as well. I like watching the behind the scenes, like what does their setup kind of look like, videos or podcasts, because to me, that's like, oh, I like that. I wonder if I could try that. And then I try it and then, oh, that video turned out terrible. Let's not do that ever again. But I like trying those different things to see what other people do, because I only know what I know, and I know what I don't know. But the problem is I don't know the things I don't know. And that's the part that I want to kind of bring myself into.
And I think sometimes that's your strength, is knowing what you don't know is sometimes way more important than knowing what you do know. And I think can really keep you grounded. That is certainly a lens I've tried to maintain over time. But it's difficult, because while you and I are doing these sort of things that are, they're cousins, right? There's not a lot of community involved. A lot of times we're working in a silo. I don't think I've ever gone through my whole setup with anybody. Who cares? So unless you're doing the thing, it can be a lonely journey, which is why I think conversations like this are important. Having community with like-minded people that are trying to, especially when you're doing something creative, it can be very thankless. It can be very, delayed gratification is a thing that I deal with for sure in this realm. But it's so important. And so, man, I appreciate you and being able to have this conversation and hear about the way you're doing things, and hopefully we can learn from each other, and all those BTS posts out there, man, they're so important. Yeah.
Well, okay. So Logan, what would you say, and this is going to be challenging for you, I think, but what has surprised you most about the guests that you've already met and talked with?
Ooh, yeah. Yeah, that is good. I think, when I'm choosing guests, I'm kind of thinking about what are they doing right now? Like with Ben Zobrist, he started a mental health organization to serve athletes and their families. And so it's a really cool thing. That's what he's doing right now. Josh Penley, international teacher, that's what he's doing right now. Will Parton, president of Go Ministries, international missions organization. What is he doing right now? But I think what surprised me along the way is how important and inspiring all of their origin stories were. Because those are a lot of things I didn't know. Even with Josh, who I've known my whole life pretty much, there were some things about his story I'm like, oh, I don't think I knew that about your journey. So I think the thing that's surprised me most is just learning how people got started and how often these sparks of feeling called to something higher, these sparks of wanting to do something more, to rise to an occasion. For the people that I've interviewed, and I'm sure the same for you, pretty high performers. But I think something that surprised me that I didn't expect as much is all of these people have had these stirrings since they were young people. And it's really, really cool as you hear the way I interview, I do kind of start from the beginning and do life story and get to the now. But it's pretty cool to be able to watch the arc happen and be like, oh, that makes sense. Like, and to use Caleb as an example too, a guy who has a really cool story and has all these early aspirations of baseball. And was an athlete and journalist. And then come to the end of the day, yes, coffee company, which maybe wasn't the original plan, but so tied in with baseball, with Chicago Cubs and the things he's been able to do. You just never know. The thing that surprised me most is these ties that start really early and come to the now are very cool to put together. Yeah, it's been good.
Well, and the cool thing is for you or for the people who know these people, we know where they are right now, but we don't often know where they came from, like you said. And so when
Right.
you see those key moments, like, oh, that's how that impacted you. We can see that looking at that now from that lens. But it isn't until we take a step back or we ask those questions to find out where did these things come from or bring me in from the
Yeah.
beginning where you can see that line. And I would have to imagine, even as you're saying that for them, that might be connecting some dots that they wouldn't otherwise have known.
Yeah, I think there's been some good moments of that. It's like oh yeah, this has been a part of my personality for kind of a long time. It's kind of a cool thing. So yeah, and being able to be in the room and help actualize those things in the room is a really special moment.
Now, because I'm in the space, I understand this a little bit. How do you
Yeah.
stay motivated when things feel uncertain? You put out that post, you're like, oh, this is going to land. This is going to be so good, and it gets nothing. And then the opposite is true. You put out something that's like, oh, that I don't think that was my best work, and then it goes crazy. When things like that happen, how do you stay motivated and continue pressing on?
Yeah. That's a journey for sure. And I think it starts with choosing to put time into things that I believe in, um, choosing to kind of pick avenues in my life that I'm committed to. And so when it comes to now streaming, I started this idea because I thought it was worthwhile. And because I felt a call to tell good stories. And so for me, that's where a lot of the motivation comes from. Because while it's not performing to the potential I think it has, and that's true, I don't disagree with my reason to start. Um, and until I am, I don't think that motivation is going to slide from me. I think that there are some people that know me and know the hats I wear and whatnot that are maybe a little confused or like, why would you spend so much time? Like, you're out on the river a lot, dude. Like, I went out and kayaked through a snowstorm a month or so ago because one, I just wanted to. I've never done it. And talking like my brother, who we grew up in the outdoors and stuff, like not afraid to just do things sometimes. And I'm like, okay, it's not totally frozen out there. I've never done that. I could bring a camera and maybe show people that are at home sipping hot chocolate what it's like out there. And no shade to hot chocolate, I enjoy it, but it's one of those things where it's like I want to go do that. I'm motivated to still go do that, and not just for the sake of content, but to keep my own inner adventure alive too. And I think maybe like a sub mission of now streaming is to maybe spark that in other people,
Mm.
um, because a lot of people don't. I mean, that's such a spectrum. It's hard to paint with broad brushes, but a lot of people I know don't live life the same way I do, and I think that's good. But I hope that in the way that I live my life and go do some things as it pertains to the outdoors, that it might spark like I've never done that. Why don't I go do that sometime? Or it has been a while since I've gotten outside these four walls because I'm busy and so is everybody else. And there's a lot of responsibilities. There's a lot of pressures. But maybe I should just go spend some time outside. If I get that reaction out of somebody through the work I'm doing and now streaming, man, is it worth it? Is it worth it? Because I know personally how much better I feel, how much more grounded I feel, how much closer to the Lord I feel when I go seek some stillness, get outside, get cold, get hot, whatever it is, be uncomfortable, um, and just embrace whatever that looks like. I think it just makes me better as a person. Um, and so, yeah, I would say that that's kind of a sub mission is like, yes, watch me do it, please. But also get out there or come with me, go do something that's different, go do something that challenges you. So yeah, there's a lot there, but
Well, okay, so as people are listening, you're crafting this, you're designing each episode with purpose and intent. The overall mission, or even from each episode, is that the hope, the feeling that they get afterwards. So that feeling of, I think I can do something that I step outside of my comfort zone. Like, what do you hope that feeling is for those people?
Yeah. Thank you for asking that question, because it is the response I hope people have is one of the reasons to do it. And that is I'm sharing these stories of these people who are spending their lives, whatever they're doing, trying to make other people's lives better, other lives healthier or more grounded, or with more community or with better leadership or whatever it is. And so the hope is that through telling those stories, that by the time you get done with an episode of Now Streaming, you kind of have a kickback moment of like, what could I do? What could I be doing for the greater good, or what could I be doing that makes other people's lives better? That is definitely a big intention of the show. Is I'm not just sharing these stories to make you feel good. I'm not interested in that. But what I am interested in is spreading good ideas and good examples and good leaders, and hoping that that propagates more good people, more good leaders, better neighbors, and maybe people can get outside along the way.
And have you had any feedback from listeners that encourage you along that line?
Yeah, graciously, there have been some of those things. One of them this morning, as a matter of fact, there is a woman who is doing some work to raise some awareness in the realm of kind of conservation in the Kankakee River Valley, who reached out and just said, "Hey, I've watched a few of these episodes, and I'm really blown away, continually blown away by the people in this area, and you being one of them. Would you come on and just talk about this so I can help promote what you're doing? Because I think it's really cool." I'm like, awesome, cool. That's always a good thing. There was another one after, I think it was I think it was with the Ben Zobrist episode, and a guy, he has a child who's in my child's class at school. And I don't know, we were the dads at a birthday party one time. We were just kind of then they say, "Oh, what do you do?" "Oh, cool. What do you do?" "All right, cool." And we know we're just eating cupcakes as adult men, and like you do. But I started telling him about Now Streaming and whatnot, and so he checked it out a couple of weeks later, and I get a message from him, and he's like, "Hey, I just wanted to verbalize that I watched this episode and it stirred something in me, and I'm gonna approach this. I'm not gonna tell a story, but I'm gonna approach this specific area of my life differently, and I'm really grateful that you went through the effort to make this interview." And like, that's it. That's it for me. Like, worth it. You see this guy who's got all the pressures of life, and there are no shortage of them. Who's a good dad and a good husband, and he's got a kind of a shifting career, and he saw something in that episode that's like, you know what, I need to step back. I need to think about this a little differently, and I'm going to do that. Not just I consumed that, but I'm going to engage with that. Which, man, just for me, I'm like, so much respect for him, because I think apathy can be our greatest enemy, especially when we consume, and it's easy to watch good things and be like, those were good things. But to be able to watch something and be like, okay, I'm gonna change something because something in that sparked something, and I'm not gonna ignore that and swipe to the next thing. I'm gonna do something about that. I had a lot of respect for him, and there's a lot of gratitude that he would watch in the first place, but then share that. It's motivating.
And those are the things that keep us as creators, or whatever you want to fill in the blank with. Those are the things that keep us coming back to continue on, because yes, I get something from it, you get something from this, but the other people that are out there get something from it. And if you're listening to the content and you are getting something from it, let those people know what it means to, because
man.
otherwise that conversation is a one way. And if they don't know that you're out there, or the impact that they're having, then for all intents and purposes, they're going to close up. They don't know that anybody's out there. Why would they continue? So to have that opportunity to step out and tell the people that, what a wonderful thing. And for us, it means so much for us, because it's like, yes, I feel validated. I feel heard. I'm so happy that you found value in that thing that I made or created, or it helped you to step out. And all of those things are so meaningful to us, the people that are creating that content that other people are consuming. Yeah.
And I couldn't agree more. And like, what a good disposition just to have in life. Like, wouldn't it be better if we lived in a way where we affirmed the people that impacted us? How true of that for our teachers, for our pastors, for the leaders in our life who pour in and put so much time into impacting us, but never hear from us. right? I mean, the default is to never engage with that much. But man, I think we'd all be better if we spent a little time typing out a little message like, "Hey, this impacted me for this reason. Thank you. Keep going." Because AI doesn't need that, but you and I do.
Yes. Yes. And I think
Yeah.
that attitude of gratitude, to be thankful for the things we have, if that can spill over, that goes right along with the golden rule. And
Yeah.
if we would like that, why not give that to other people?
Yeah. It's an easy thing and it's free.
Mm. Now,
Mm-hmm.
Logan, last question here. Well, okay, let's say one of the last questions. If somebody has an idea that they're postponing, they're waiting for that perfect time, they're waiting for things to align, what would you tell them about doing that thing?
Yeah. Um, it's easy to just say start. But I think there's a couple things. If you're a young person, you've got a dream. I'm a dreamer. I'm a future oriented guy. My head's in the clouds most of the time. And I like it up there. But if you're a dreamer and you're a young person, and specifically if you're a single young person, here's something I do want to say: marry well, marry well. Fight against convenient relationships and marry well. Marry somebody that in the Christian community we would say is equally yoked. Marry somebody that is on the same page as you, that has the same values as you, that understands your dreams and wants to get behind them, and be an advocate and a sounding board for you. And I say all of that because I would be doing none of the things I'm doing had I not married my wife, Tiffany. I get a lot of people, friends and family and whoever, like, wow, how's Tiffany feel? You're out kayaking again. Or, as a gigging musician, like you were gigging a lot. Like, have you ever seen your kids before? I'm like, that's a little bit rude. But I get the concern, but marrying somebody that gets you and is like behind your goals is everything. It's everything. I would not be doing any of the things I'm doing. And she's not like outside the door getting ready to throw something at me if I don't say this. But truly, my life would look a lot different if I didn't have a partner that was invested in me and invested in my dreams. So that's what I would say. I know that's not exactly the question, but I do think it's important to say, because that has been probably one of the bigger things that has shaped my path, is marrying somebody that supports me in my goals and is actively walking alongside me in partnership. It's huge. Can't say that enough. The other thing I'd say is, I can only speak to my experience, but analysis paralysis is a real thing. And if you have a good idea that you haven't started, that's probably one of the reasons why you haven't started. Take one little step. What is the one step you can take today? And maybe you're not working for tomorrow. Maybe if you got an idea, I think with just the reality of delayed gratification when you're starting something new is you can't work for the dopamine hit tomorrow. What you can do is work for the progress you made in a week. It's kind of like in the gym. Like, I'm always trying to stay in shape and eat less and, have more caloric burn, whatever. Everybody's, summer's coming and the dad bod is here to get you. And putting in those reps and working for next week, not tomorrow, is a frame of mind that has helped me. I know that my life is not going to look drastically different tomorrow than it is today. I'm not going to look different drastically tomorrow than I do today. But if I'm consistent, if I'm making little steps throughout the week, next week I might have something to stand on from a content perspective. I might have some copy that I've written I feel good about. I might have a conversation or two with trusted advisors that helps point me in the right direction. I might have some images I took, or maybe I went for a walk and I had some clarity. All of those things compound. So if you've got that thing you haven't started, yes, start, but start small. Start strategic. Start, if you can, don't start alone. I think anytime we can do something with somebody that can bring us along, that is usually best case. But even if there's nothing else, start today, start small, start consistent. In the world of content, in the world of creation and storytelling, and anything in media, it is very rarely about how good of a product you make. This is the frustration for me in now streaming, if I'm being 100% vulnerable. I feel as if my interviews are done very well and very different than anything else anybody's doing. And like I said, the growth pattern has been slow, and I anticipated that. It's not something that I am surprised by. But sometimes it's like, man, this is good. Why aren't people eating it? But it's the consistency. It's the commitment to the idea, the commitment to the mission, whatever you have. But if you don't start, it's like that old proverb, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. But the second best time is today. So those are my thoughts, I guess.
I think one of the biggest lies we tell ourselves is that we need more clarity before we start, more confidence, more proof, more permission.
Yeah.
But Logan, your story helps to remind us that clarity comes after the commitment, not before it. You don't find yourself by thinking, you find yourself by doing something slightly uncomfortable on purpose. And Logan, as we're wrapping up, do you have any key thoughts or final takeaways you would like to leave the audience with? And if they would like to learn more about Now Streaming, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, thanks. And hey, just again, thanks for having me on. This is great. I love the synergy of getting to spend time in conversation with people like yourself. This is a real gift to me. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I've said a lot of things I want to say. If you've got something and you've got something, move on it. Don't rob us of your gift to the world. If you need to hear it like that, don't rob everybody else of the thing that you have to offer. Even if it doesn't have polished lighting, even if the audio is a little off, even if you get caught by a fisherman while you're trying to do it, whatever it is, don't rob us of getting to enjoy your gift. So that's what I would say to people and creatives and people that are maybe in a different field as well. I think that's still true. If you want to check out Now Streaming, the handle on all socials is the @ at It's Now Streaming. It's being me and guests who I find inspirational, that are doing good things in the world that are worthwhile. And I hope that it inspires a love for the outdoors. I hope it inspires curiosity, and I hope it inspires people to go out and make this place better, make ourselves better. There are currently 6 episodes, full episodes that are streaming. There are more on the way. We've been kind of in a winter hiatus. Asking people to kayak in the winter is tough. I'm sitting on a couple interviews that I've been waiting to put out once it warms up. One of those guys really well. And so I'm really excited to share those stories and to keep trying to do something meaningful by myself. I had this idea, this pull to this thing, and I think that there can be good that comes of it. And so I'm going to keep doing those things, and I hope you check it out.
Well, and listeners, here's the real takeaway from this conversation I hope you land with today. What's the idea that you're postponing because it feels too simple, too weird, too unfinished? That thing might be exactly where your growth is waiting. Don't wait until you're ready. Get in the kayak, push off, and let the current teach you what you need to learn.